All right. Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. You know how much we both love getting out on the water?
Oh, yeah.
And lately, I've been seeing all these amazing canoe adventures online,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got me thinking about upping my own canoe game, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So today, we're going to be diving into a podcast description that's packed with tips and tricks.
Okay, cool.
It's called Paddle Hacks and Pro Tips, and it sounds like it's got something for everyone, from
Nice.
beginners to, seasoned paddlers like yourself.
All right, let's see what they got.
Okay, so right off the bat, they're talking about DIY gear hacks,
Oh, DIY.
which I gotta say I'm all about,
Yeah.
especially the one about building a canoe rack for your car.
Oh, that's a good one.
Have you ever tried any DIY gear hacks?
Oh, yeah, actually, I built my first canoe rack years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't the prettiest thing, but it got the job done.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, just some scrap wood and some ingenuity.
Exactly, and that's the spirit of it, right? They even have a hack for a waterproof phone case,
Oh, wow.
using just stuff you have around the house.
Interesting.
Pretty clever.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably way past that. You've got your own system for keeping your phone dry, I'm sure.
I'm pretty old school. I just use a zip top bag.
Oh, that's classic.
It's always worked for me, but, if you want something more permanent, I can see the appeal of a DIY case.
Yeah, definitely.
Just make sure you test it out before you, trust it with your phone.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Good advice.
Yeah.
And speaking of being prepared, they also mention a tip for on-the-go canoe repair,
Oh, right.
using duct tape and zip ties.
That's essential.
That's like your granola bar wrapper and fishing line story all over again.
Oh, yeah. That was a desperate time. We had to get creative.
You got to do what you got to do,
It worked, though.
as long as it gets you back to shore, right?
Exactly.
So now let's talk about packing,
Okay.
because that's a whole other challenge when it comes to canoe trips.
Absolutely.
And the podcast talks about using dry bags,
Yeah.
not just for waterproofing, but also for organization.
Like having different bags for your kitchen stuff, your
It's
clothes.
like a modular system.
Yeah, it's like Tetris for your canoe.
I love that.
Have you ever tried that?
It's brilliant, especially for multi-day trips. Everything's organized, easy to find,
Oh, that's key.
and it helps with weight distribution, too.
Oh, that's so important.
You don't want to tip over.
Speaking of multi-day tricks, let's talk about paddling techniques.
All right.
The podcast mentions the J-stroke.
Yeah.
The J-stroke. You're probably a pro at this, but for me, it was like mind-blowing.
It's a good one.
Just a little twist at the end of your stroke
Right.
can make a huge difference in keeping you going straight.
Especially in wind.
Have you found that to be true?
Oh, yeah. It's a game changer. It's all about finesse control, using the paddle like a rudder.
Wow.
Once you master it, you can paddle in a straight line with minimal effort.
It sounds so graceful. They also talk about rudders and skegs.
Right.
Now, for our listeners who might be new to canoeing,
Yeah,
a rudder is basically like a steering wheel for your canoe. Right, controlled with your feet.
exactly. And a skeg is a fixed fin,
Helps you track straight.
especially in windy conditions.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those necessary luxury?
I'd say for leisurely paddling on calm water, you can probably do without.
Okay,
But for longer trips, especially in challenging conditions, they can be invaluable.
makes sense.
A rudder gives you more precise control, and a skeg enhances stability so you don't have to constantly correct your course.
Like autopilot for your canoe.
Exactly.
Now, getting lost is always a concern for me. And Paddle Hacks talks about using maps, compasses, and smartphone apps for navigation.
Always good to have.
I can only imagine you've had your fair share of navigational challenges over the years.
Oh, yeah. We once got caught in thick fog
Oh, no.
and ended up paddling in circles for hours. We had a compass, thankfully,
Oh, good.
and eventually found our way back.
That must have been scary.
It was a good reminder to always have basic navigation skills, even with technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So those camp hacks become even more important. They talk about setting up camp near water, purifying water on the go,
Essential skills.
even starting a fire using dryer lint.
You never know when you'll need that.
Have you ever had to get that resourceful?
More times than I can count.
Really?
We once forgot our fire starter, had to use a
Wow.
magnifying glass and some dry leaves.
Wow.
Took a while, but we got a fire going.
You're like a survival expert.
You learn to appreciate the simple things.
And that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah,
Connecting with nature, relying on your ingenuity.
absolutely.
But of course, safety comes first.
Always.
And they have a whole episode about reading water currents and predicting weather changes.
The important stuff.
You're probably a master at that by now. Any tips for our listeners?
Always check the forecast before you head out. Be prepared for sudden changes. Learn to read the water. Pay attention to currents, eddies, potential hazards.
Mm-hmm.
And always wear a life jacket.
No exceptions.
No exceptions.
Solid advice. So once the paddling season's over, how do you keep all your gear in tip-top shape?
Clean and dry everything thoroughly before storing it.
Yeah.
A little TLC goes a long way.
Now, that episode on silent paddling really intrigued me.
Oh, yeah.
Paddling silently to observe wildlife, that sounds magical.
It is.
What's the secret to minimizing noise from your canoe and gear?
It's all about finesse, minimizing unnecessary movement. A well-maintained canoe will be quieter, and using soft, absorbent materials for your gear helps dampen sound. It's about moving in harmony with nature,
Wow.
becoming a part of the stillness.
That's beautiful. So there you have it. Paddle hacks and pro tips. Sounds like a treasure trove of information for canoe enthusiasts of all levels.
Definitely.
And you know, all those challenges we were talking about before, like that tricky portage you mentioned, do any of these hacks seem particularly useful for that kind of situation? Or maybe you've even come up with your own workarounds over the years. Let us know in the comments, because we'd love to hear about your own paddle hacks and pro tips. And until next time, happy paddling.
Happy paddling.
And don't forget to check out the Motor City Paddle Club. They've got kayak rentals perfect for exploring the Weber paddle. So get out there and enjoy the water.